The air in the Moonhaven clearing should have smelled of pine and promise. Instead, it carried the bitter, metallic taste of my own dread. I pressed my back against the rough bark of an old cedar, my fingers digging grooves into the wood. Tonight was the Rune Gathering, where the Silver Fang pack celebrated its bonds, its strength, its unbreakable hierarchy under the cold gaze of the full moon. I, Kaelin, was the ghost at this feast. And Omega, my presence was a formality, a silent checkmark on a list that proved my pack was complete. Tradition demanded I stand at the edge, in the shadows where the firelight didn't quite reach. My dress was the color of dust. My hair, pale as morning frost, was braided tight to my scalp. To be invisible was the goal. To pass through like a wisp of mist, leaving no impression, causing no ripple. But tonight the air itself felt charged, thick with a tension that had nothing to do with ceremony. It prickled against my skin like static before a storm. Alpha Valerius, a man carved from granite and winter, raised his arms. His voice, like rolling thunder, silenced the crowd. We honor the chain that binds us, the order that protects us. Strength, loyalty, obedience, these are the pillars upon which the Silver Fang stands. Obedience. The word settled in my bones, cold and heavy. It was the chain that had wrapped around my life since birth, the sacred order that decided I would always be less. My mother's face, soft and faded like an old photograph, floated in my mind. She'd been in Omega too, gone 5 winters now. Her last words to me were a fragile whisper. Your heart is your strength, Kaelin. One day they will need its compass. They just don't know it yet. I wanted to believe her ghost, but 5 more years of silence and sidelong glances had taught me a harsher truth. Needing something and valuing it were worlds apart. The ceremony droned on, victories recounted, hunters praised, mates celebrated. I let my mind drift, a survival tactic perfected over years. I became part of the forest, a stone, a shadow, nothing. Then I felt it, a gaze, not the fleeting dismissive glances of my pack, but a weight, intent, singular. It pinned me from the darkness beyond the firelight. My breath hitched. I kept my eyes fixed on the flames, but every instinct screamed to turn, to search the black void between the ancient trees. Omegas did not draw attention, yet this attention had found me, cold and deliberate, crawling up my spine. Alpha Valerius's voice cut through my panic. Now, we address the threat from the wild woods to the north. Patrols are doubled. No one crosses the boundary markers. Your safety depends on your discipline. His eyes swept the gathering, and for one heart-stopping second, they locked with mine. It wasn't anger I saw, but something worse. Absolute indifference, a reminder that my safety was irrelevant to the pack's security. Then his gaze moved on, and I could breathe again, shakily. As the pack began to disperse toward the feast, a sharp voice sliced through the murmur. Cora, a beta with ambitions as sharp as her cheekbones, stepped forward. Alpha, if I may, our winter stores are lean. Perhaps it's time we reassessed who truly contributes to our strength and survival. The silence that followed was a living bang, sharp and suffocating. She didn't look at me, but every soul there knew who she meant. The Omegas, the healers, the growers, the menders, the soft ones. Your point is noted, Cora, his tone giving nothing away. The council will consider it. The damage was done. I felt the weight of their collective stare, calculating, cold. I was no longer just invisible. I was a line item on a ledger, being assessed for worth. Humiliation burned my cheeks, but beneath it a spark of defiance flickered. It was that tiny, foolish spark that made me speak as Cora turned away with her companion, Jax. My contributions may not be made with claws, but they are made. Cora turned slowly, a predator savoring the moment. Did you just speak unbidden, little ghost? Your contributions? When was the last time your herbs stopped a rogue's fang? Your words halted an enemy's charge? You tend gardens. You are a luxury we can no longer afford. The small crowd snickered. The spark inside me guttered and died, drowned in a fresh wave of shame. I stood alone as they walked away, their laughter echoing into the trees. The fire had burned to embers, mirroring the cold ashes in my chest. I couldn't stay here. I needed air that was laced with contempt. I turned and walked into the forest, away from the lights, the voices, the crushing weight of being a burden. I knew it was forbidden. Valerius's warning echoed in my head, but the need to escape just for a moment was a physical ache. The deeper woods were quiet, a cathedral of ancient trees and silver moonlight. I walked until the pack sounds faded, until there was only my heartbeat and the whisper of leaves. Then I felt it again, that gaze, but multiplied, 100-fold. I froze. Slowly I turned. Eyes. Dozens of them, glowing like captured starlight in the profound black between the trunks. Not the warm amber of pack wolves. These were shades of silver, moonstone blue, and glacial green. They formed a perfect silent circle around me. Terror, sharp and clean, shot through my veins. Rogues. I had walked right into their territory. I should run. I should scream. My body was locked in place. They began to move. Not a rush, but a deliberate, seamless convergence, tightening the circle with a terrifying, graceful precision. This was no frenzied attack. This was a strategy. The largest wolf, a massive creature with a pelt of shadow and silver-tipped fur, stepped into a moonbeam. His eyes were pure mercury, intelligent and ancient. He looked directly at me, and to my utter horror, he sat. He sat on his haunches, head tilted, as if studying a curious puzzle. A low rumbling sound emanated from his chest, not a growl, but a complex series of tones. The other wolves shifted positions in response, a silent, fluid dance. They were communicating. They were thinking. Panic finally shattered my paralysis. I stumbled back, then spun and ran. I crashed through the underbrush, branches tearing at my clothes and skin. I expected snarls, the thunder of pursuit. There was only silence, an eerie, profound silence that was more frightening than any noise. I ran until my lungs were fire, until a hidden root snatched my foot. The world spun. My temple connected with stone, a burst of white pain, then nothing but the taste of soil and the distant mournful sound of a howl that seemed to shake the very stars. I awoke to voices floating above me, distorted and hollow. Just inside the boundary line, Fool could have gotten herself killed. What was she thinking? Does she ever? I forced my eyes open. Blurry faces resolved into Cora, Jax, and 2 other betas. I was on a cot in the lodge's infirmary, a dull thudding in my head. "She's awake," Cora announced, her voice flat. Pity. I tried to sit up, and pain lanced through my head. "What happened?" "That's our question," Jack sneered, crossing his arms. "You were found unconscious at the edge of the wild woods after the Alpha's direct order. Care to explain?" The memory flooded back. The eyes, the circle, the silent, intelligent hunter. "I needed air. I didn't mean to go so far." "Air," Cora repeated, dripping with disdain. "You needed air, so you risked bringing a rogue pack down on all of us for a stroll? Your selfishness is astounding." Before I could reply, the door opened. Alpha Valerius entered, and the room temperature seemed to drop. The betas fell silent, bowing their heads as he dismissed them with a flick of his wrist. His eyes, like chips of flint, landed on me. "Do you comprehend the depth of your disobedience, Kaylin?" His voice was quiet, which made it infinitely worse. "Yes, Alpha." "I doubt that." He leaned closer, and his dominance pressed down on me like a physical weight. "You were found alone, vulnerable, a ripe gift for any rogue. And yet, he paused, his gaze piercing. We found no tracks near you, no scent of other wolves, no sign of struggle, just you, sleeping peacefully after your foolish journey. My blood ran cold. He was suspicious. I fell. I hit my head. Convenient, he murmured. You are confined to the lodge grounds for 1 moon, double duties. And understand this, if you disobey me again, you will be cast out. The Silverfang has no room for liabilities. Cast out? A death sentence for an Omega? My throat closed. I understand, Alpha. He left without another word. The finality of the door closing echoed in the hollow space he left behind. The next 2 weeks were a grind of exhaustion, dawn to dusk labor, scrubbing, hauling, mending, punishment designed to break spirit and body. I became a phantom in the corridors, a silent drudge everyone saw, but no one acknowledged. Only one person offered a semblance of kindness. Alara, another Omega, with hair the color of rich earth and eyes full of silent understanding. She would slip me an extra piece of bread, a warm glance. "What really happened out there, Kaylin?" she whispered one day in the laundry room, her voice barely audible over the rush of water. "Tell me the truth." I looked at her weary, compassionate face and made a decision. They weren't normal rogues, Alara. They were organized. They surrounded me, but they didn't attack. Their leader, he just sat and watched me. Alara's eyes widened. That's not rogue behavior. That's pack behavior. But whose pack? I whispered back. If the Alpha thought there was an organized, intelligent group that close, she trailed off, with fear in her eyes, there would be war. Blood would drown these woods. So I kept the secret. But the question haunted me. Why did they let me go? On the 13th day of my confinement, in the cold, dank silence of the root cellar, I got an answer. I was stacking jars when a shadow detached itself from the darkness. A man, tall, dressed in worn, practical leathers, with dark hair and eyes that held a strange, weary light. His scent was wild, unfamiliar, not pack. I stumbled back, a jar slipping from my hand to shatter on the stone floor. "Don't be afraid," he said, his hands raised. His voice was quiet, which made it not okay. "My name is Silas." "How did you get in here?" I breathed, my back hitting a shelf. "That's not important," he said, taking a careful step forward. "I'm here about the forest, about the 30 wolves who watched you and let you live." The air left my lungs. You were one of them?" He nodded. "Our Alpha, Ronan, was the one who called us off. He's the one who spared you." "Why?" The word was a desperate plea. "Because Ronan saw something," Silas said, his gaze intense. "He's been watching your pack. He knows how they treat you. He knows the beta, Cora, is rallying others to cast the Omegas out. He knows you lay in those woods for over 3 hours before your own pack bothered to look for you. Each fact was a dagger. 3 hours. They'd left me there unconscious and defenseless for 3 hours. What does he want?" My voice was a thread. "A meeting. A chance to talk. He has an offer for you, Kaylin. A choice." "A choice to become a rogue?" I couldn't keep the bitterness out. "A choice to stop being a ghost," Silas corrected softly. "Tomorrow night, the clearing with the lightning-struck oak. Come alone. If you tell your Alpha—" He didn't finish the threat. He didn't need to. He simply turned and melted back into the cellar's secret passages, leaving me alone with the shattered glass and the seismic shift in my world. The next night, I stood at the edge of the forbidden forest, my heart a frantic drum against my ribs. I had lied to Alara, taken a dark cloak, and slipped from the lodge like the ghosts they named me. The clearing appeared exactly as Silas described. The great oak stood in the center,
a majestic skeleton split down the middle by some ancient celestial rage, its bleached wood glowing in the moonlight. And beneath it, a man waited. He was taller than I remembered from my terrified glimpse, Ronan. His shoulders were broad, his posture relaxed, yet radiating a latent power that made Valerius's dominance seem like posturing. His hair was black as a raven's wing, falling to his jaw, and his eyes, they were the same luminous mercury from the forest. They found me instantly. Kaelin, he said, and my name in his voice was neither a dismissal nor a weapon. It was just my name. Thank you for coming. I stayed at the tree line, poised for flight. You said you had an offer. I do, but first you need context. We are not rogues. He gestured for me to sit. I remained standing. He didn't press it. We are the Grey Dawn, survivors. Our pack, the Highland Crest, was destroyed not by outsiders, but by our own Alpha. He became obsessed with a twisted idea of purity. He began culling those he deemed weak, the old, the gentle, the different. He called it strengthening the bloodline. We were the ones who refused to participate, the ones who fought our way out. His story settled over me, a tragedy that echoed the cold pragmatism I just heard from Cora. Why are you telling me this? Because the sickness that took my home is spreading, Ronan said, his grave voice. It's in the whispers of your betas. It's in your alpha's indifference. It's a poison that values only the claw and the fang and forgets that the heart is what truly binds a pack. We've been watching. We see you, Kaelin. We see your value. My pack doesn't. Then your pack is blind. He took a single step forward. My offer is Sanctuary, a place with the Grey Dawn, where salvaging your skills as a healer, a grower, a peacemaker are not just tolerated, they are celebrated, where you would have a voice, where you could breathe without asking permission. The offer hung in the air, beautiful and terrifying, to leave everything I knew, to trust wolves I just met, to become a true rogue in the eyes of all. I need time. Take it, he said without hesitation, but be careful. The currents in your pack are turning dangerous. Cora's faction gains strength by the day. When you decide, come to this clearing. We will be watching. He paused. Whatever you choose, thank you for listening. It took courage to come here tonight. I turned and fled back into the trees, his words chasing me. Sanctuary, a voice, breathe. The following day was the Harvest Festival, lanterns, music, laughter, a mockery of community when I felt more isolated than ever. I stood in the shadows, watching my pack celebrate a bounty I'd helped grow but would never fully share. And then I saw him, Ronan, a specter at the forest's edge. Our eyes met. He held up 3 fingers. 3 days. Then he was gone. Later that night, creeping back to my room, I heard the voices from Alpha Valerius's study. Cora's, sharp and insistent. The resources, Alpha. The Omegas are a drain. In times like these, sentiment cannot override survival.
Valerius's reply was low, thoughtful. Your concerns have merit. We will put it to the full council vote at the next moon. The world tilted. The vote was a formality. I knew which way it would go. Ronan's warning wasn't a possibility. It was a prophecy. My time in the Silver Fang was being measured in days. I had 3 days to decide my fate. 3 days to choose between a slow, sanctioned death by exile or a leap into the unknown with the silver-eyed wolf who saw a ghost and called her by name. The 3 days Ronan had given me stretched and contracted, each hour a lifetime. I moved through my duties like an automaton, my mind a battlefield. Every kind word from Ilara felt like a farewell. Every scornful glance from Cora felt like a nail in a coffin. I began to prepare, a quiet, desperate rebellion. A small pouch of healing herbs from my secret stash, a water skin, a worn but serviceable knife I lost from the kitchens.
I hid them under a loose floorboard, a meager arsenal for a new life. On the second day, Ilara cornered me in the herb garden. "You're leaving," she stated, her voice hollow with certainty, not accusation. I couldn't lie to her. Not anymore. Tears blurred my vision as I nodded. She pulled me into a fierce, sudden hug. "Then be swift as the east wind and silent as the falling snow. And remember, Kaylin," she whispered, pulling back to hold my face, her own tears tracing paths through the garden dust on her cheeks. "You carry a light they tried to snuff out. Don't you dare let it go." Her blessing shattered something brittle inside me. This was real. I was really going. The final day dawned gray and heavy. I performed my chores with a surreal clarity, touching familiar walls, smelling familiar scents, memorizing a life I was about to sever. As dusk bled into night, I retrieved my hidden bundle, changed into dark, sturdy clothes, and took one last look at the barren room that had never been a home. Slipping into the hallway, I was the ghost they'd made me, unseen, unheard. The forest welcomed me with a sigh, and I moved north, my senses stretched taut. I was halfway to the clearing when I heard the patrol, 2 betas, their conversation casual. I froze, melting into the trunk of a giant pine, my heart hammering so loud I was sure they'd hear it. They passed within a stone's throw, oblivious. The invisibility I'd resented had become my greatest weapon. I reached the clearing. Ronan stood under the scarred oak, but he wasn't alone. Silas was there, and behind them, shifting in the moon-dappled shadows, were other forms. The 30. My breath caught. Ronan stepped forward, his mercury eyes scanning me, reading the resolve and terror on my face. "Your choice?" "I choose to leave," I said, the words final and freeing. "I choose the gray dawn." A smile, warm and genuine, broke across his stern features. "Then welcome home, Kaylin." He offered his hand. I looked back once, toward the Silverfang territory, toward Ilara, sleeping unaware, toward the life of quiet erasure. Then I placed her hand in his. His grip was firm, warm, an anchor in the swirling unknown. "We move now," Silas said, handing me a proper pack filled with supplies. "We need distance by dawn." As I changed into the travel clothes they provided, a woman with kind eyes and streaks of silver in her hair approached me. "I'm Marin. I was the head healer of the Highland Crest. Ronan told me of your skill with herbs. We have much to learn from each other." Her words, simple and welcoming, undid me. For the first time in my life, my knowledge was sought, not scorned. I wasn't a burden. I was a potential asset, a person. We moved into the deep forest, a silent, flowing river of wolves and humans in shifted form. Ronan moved at the front, a dark sentinel. I was placed in the center, protected. As we walked, the weight I'd carried for years, the weight of rejection, began to crack and fall away, piece by piece. It was replaced by a terrifying, exhilarating lightness. I was free. I was afraid. I was alive. The journey to the Grey Dawn's camp took 2 days of hard travel through terrain that grew increasingly rugged and beautiful. We followed hidden game trails, crossed icy streams, and moved with a practiced silence that spoke of long years living in the shadows. Finally, we descended into a hidden valley, sheltered by towering cliffs and dense pine. Tents and cleverly constructed lean-tos were scattered around a central fire pit, blending seamlessly with the environment. This wasn't a permanent settlement. It was a refuge designed to be moved at a moment's notice. I was introduced to the community. There was Finn, who was a hulking, quiet man who was their best tracker. Lyra, a fierce beta with a sharp wit and sharp eyes, who led their scouts. There were others of all ages and designations, betas, omegas, even a few quiet alphas who followed Ronan not out of dominance but respect. They were survivors, scars visible and invisible, but their eyes held a determined light, not the dull resentment of the Silverfang omegas. My first days were a blur of learning. Marin took me under her wing, showing me their medicinal stores, richer and more varied than anything I'd known. Finn taught me basic tracking, not to hunt, but to understand the forest story, to see the unseen. Lyra showed me how to move without sound, how to use the terrain as a shield. And Ronan? Ronan was everywhere and nowhere, a steady, watchful presence. He ate with the pack, listened to disputes, made decisions with a council that included Marin, Silas, and Elira. His leadership was nothing like Valerius's. It was a burden he carried, not a throne he occupied. One evening, a young Omega named Tarn, barely 15, came to the healing tent with a deep gash on his arm from a fall. As Marin and I cleaned and stitched it, he chattered nervously. "Will it scar?" he asked, his eyes wide. "A little," Marin said kindly. "A badge of honor, a reminder to watch your footing on the scree slopes. Will I still be able to train with Lyra scouts?" I paused, the needle in my hand. In the Silverfang, an Omega asking to train as a scout would have been met with derisive laughter. Marin didn't even blink. Once it's healed and you've rebuilt the strength, Lyra sets the standard, not your designation. Tarn beamed, the pain forgotten. In that small moment, I understood the profound difference here. Potential wasn't predetermined, it was nurtured. Later, by the central fire, Ronan sat beside me, handing me a cup of pine needle tea. "You're settling in," he observed. "It's different," I admitted. Tarn asked if he could be a scout, and no one laughed. "Why would they?" Ronan asked, genuine confusion in his tone. "In Lyra, it's our best scout because she is sharp, patient, and brave. If Tarn develops those traits, he will be an asset. His designation is irrelevant." The simple logic of it was revolutionary. In the Silverfang, it's the only thing that matters.
"Then the Silverfang is poor indeed," he said softly. He looked into the fire, his profile etched in flame and shadow. "The Grey Dawn was born from the ashes of a pack that forgot its heart. We will not make that mistake. Every skill, every perspective, every quiet strength, they are threads in our weave. Pull one and the whole tapestry weakens." I sipped my key, the warmth spreading through my chest. For the first time, I wasn't a loose thread threatening to unravel the edge. I was part of the weave. "Tell me about the night you found me," I said quietly. "Why did you stop? Why not just eliminate a Silverfang wolf?" Ronan was silent for a long moment. "We'd been watching your pack for months. We saw the way they treated their Omegas. We saw you, specifically. You moved through that contempt with a dignity that infuriated them. That night, when you ran into our perimeter, you were terrified. But when you spoke, you didn't beg for your life. You said you didn't want trouble. You just wanted to breathe." He met my eyes, the mercury glowing softly. "I looked at you, surrounded, alone, and I didn't see an enemy. I saw a reflection. Someone trapped, needing air. How could I condemn you to the very fate we had escaped?" His words settled in my soul. He hadn't saved a valuable healer. He hadn't spared a potential spy. He had offered mercy to a drowning soul because he remembered what it was to drown. That night, as I lay in my small tent listening to the sounds of the secure camp, the soft murmur of voices, the crackle of the banked fire, the last shards of my old life fell away. The ghost of Kaelin was gone. Here, in the heart of the Grey Dawn, a new woman was taking her first sure breaths. Weeks melted into months in the hidden valley. The sharp edge of fear softened, replaced by the rhythm of purposeful work. Under Marin's guidance, my knowledge of herbs expanded beyond the kitchen simples I'd known. I learned to identify the rare veil moss that numbed severe pain, the crimson sapwood that fought infection, and the delicate moon petal that cowled fevered minds. One afternoon, while replenishing our stocks near a secluded stream, I found a plant I didn't recognize. Its leaves were a deep velvety purple with silver veins, and it emitted a faint, soothing scent like night-blooming jasmine. Intrigued,
I collected a sample. Back at camp, Marin's eyes widened when she saw it. Shadow's balm, she breathed, taking the plant with reverent hands. I haven't seen this since the Highlands. It's incredibly rare. Its properties are legendary. It can heal deep tissue damage, mend what other herbs cannot. Where did you find it? I described the location, a damp, shadowy crevice near the water. It called to you, Marin said, a strange awe in her voice. Shadow's balm is said to reveal itself only to those with a healer's true heart, those who seek to mend not just bodies, but broken spirits. She looked at me, her gaze knowing. Your mother was right, Kaylin. Your gentleness is a profound strength. This is proof. The validation was a warm stone in my chest. Later, as I helped Lyra reinforce a snare trap, she grunted in approval at my knots. Quick learner, you've got clever fingers, not just for stitching skin, I see. I had a lot of practice mending tears, I said, thinking of the endless pile of pack laundry. Lyra paused, her sharp eyes assessing me. They wasted you, tried to turn a diamond into dust. I'm glad Ronan has better eyesight. Ronan. His presence was a constant, steady warmth. We often found ourselves talking by the fire after duties were done. He spoke of the Highlands, of mountains that touched the clouds, of a library his pack had kept filled with histories and herbals, all burned. I spoke of my mother, of her quiet wisdom, of the small garden we'd kept behind our hut. One evening, as a late spring chill kissed the air, he told me the full story of the fall, not just the culling, but the night of escape. It was Celis who got the children out, Ronan said, his voice low. Marin created a diversion, pretending a sickness was spreading from the weak ones. In the chaos, we fought our way free. We lost so many. My younger sister, Alara, was among them. The name was a punch to my gut. Alara, my sweet, brave friend. A coincidence, but it felt like a thread connecting my past to his. I'm so sorry, I whispered. We carry them with us, he said, staring into the flames. We build this new life for them too, so their sacrifice means something. He turned his mercury gaze on me. You carry your mother with you, in your hands, in your compassion. That is how we survive, not by forgetting, but by honoring. That night, as I prepared a poultice with the precious shadow balm for an elder's aching joints, I felt a deep sense of belonging, of purpose. I was not just hiding, I was healing, I was building. But the outside world had not forgotten us. Finn returned from a long scouting trip, his expression grim. He went straight to Ronan's tent, and soon after, Silas and Lyra were summoned. An hour later, Ronan called the pack together. His face was set in stern lines. Finn's patrol has seen increased Silverfang activity along the northern ridges. Patrols are larger, more frequent. They're searching for something, or someone. A cold knot formed in my stomach. Me. Lyra stepped forward. They've also had contact with the Stonetooth pack from the east. There was an exchange of messengers. It looks like an alliance is being discussed. Murmurs of fear rippled through the camp. The Silverfang was strong. An alliance would make them a regional power and a dire threat to any rogues in their territory. They consolidate power by inventing external enemies, and what better enemy than the mysterious rogue pack that stole their Omega? It's my fault, the words tearing from me. I led them to you. No, Ronan's voice cut through the growing anxiety, firm and absolute. You sought freedom. They seek conquest. There is a world of difference. We knew the risks when we offered you sanctuary. You are one of us now. Your fight is our fight. His unwavering defense should have comforted me. Instead, it fueled a new fierce determination. I would not be the cause of this new family's destruction. The ghost of the Silverfang had to truly vanish. And perhaps, I realized with a chill, the only way to protect the Grey Dawn was to understand what the Silverfang was truly planning. Finn, I said, my voice clearer than I felt. Did the scouts hear anything specific, any names, any places? Finn nodded slowly. One of their hunters, a loudmouth called Jax, was complaining to his partner, said he was tired of chasing phantoms in the north, when the real problem was festering closer to home, said Cora's plan was taking too long. Cora, ambition sharp enough to cut, a plan. The peace of the valley was shattered. We were no longer just survivors in hiding. We were a target, and I, Kaylin, the unseen Omega, held threads of this looming conflict in my hands. I just had to figure out how to weave them into a shield before they became a noose. The camp shifted into a higher state of alert. Patrols doubled, lookouts were posted on the cliffs. A palpable tension hummed in the air, replacing the easy rhythm we'd established. My healing duties increased as warriors trained harder, resulting in more sprains and cuts. I worked alongside Marin, my hands steady, but my mind raced. Cora's plan. What was it? A direct assault on the Grey Dawn seemed unlikely. They didn't know our location. An alliance with the Stone-Tooth suggested something bigger, a consolidation of power, a cleansing of the territory. Were we just a convenient scapegoat, or was there more? I sought out Finn, finding him fletching arrows with meticulous care. The hunter, Jax, did he say anything else? Anything about festering closer to home? Finn's keen eyes met mine. He mentioned the Omega sympathizers, grumbled that cleaning house should start inside the walls before chasing shadows.
A cold dread dripped down my spine. Omega sympathizers. Alara. Others like her. Cora wasn't just planning to cast Omegas out. She was rooting out anyone who might oppose her, anyone who showed kindness. She was purging the Silverfang from within, solidifying her faction's control before making a move for the Alpha seat. Valerius's indifference was a veil. Beneath it, a coup was brewing. I had to warn Alara. The thought was impulsive, dangerous, but it screamed in my blood. She was in terrible danger. That night, I went to Ronan. He was studying a map drawn on cured hide, the firelight etching deep lines of concern on his face. "I need to go back," I said, my voice barely audible. He didn't look up. "No." "Ronan, please, it's not just about me anymore. Cora is targeting her own people, the kind ones, the dissenting voices. My friend, she's in danger. I can't let her pay for my escape." Finally, he lifted his gaze. The mercury eyes held a storm. "It's a trap, Kaylin. Can't you see it? Omega sympathizers. It's a phrase designed to leak, to draw you out. They know your heart. They're using it as bait." His logic was impeccable, chilling. So we let them be punished? Let Cora twist my pack into her image of cruelty? I shook my head, a new strength hardening within me. "You saved me because you saw someone trapped. Now others are trapped. Isn't that what the Grey Dawn stands for? Not just survival, but defiance of that cruelty." He stared at me, a long, silent battle warring in his eyes. Finally, he let out a slow breath. "If you go, it will be with a plan, not a suicide mission, and you will not go alone." The plan was born in the deep hours of the night. Lyra, with her preternatural stealth, would accompany me to the very edge of Silverfang territory. I would go in alone, under the cloak of darkness, using every ghost skill I'd ever learned. My goal was not to confront, but to contact, to find Alara, whisper a warning, and leave a small braided cord of gray and green threads, the colors of dawn on moss, a silent network within the walls. It was a risk of catastrophic proportions, but to do nothing felt like a betrayal of the person I was becoming. 2 nights later, Lyra and I were shadows flitting through the familiar trees. At the boundary stone, marked with the sigil of the Fang, Lyra gripped my arm. "You have until the moon reaches that branch," she whispered, pointing. "Not a second longer. If you're not back, we come in, and it will be war." I nodded, my mouth dry. Then I slipped past the stone, back into the land of my captivity. Moving through the sleeping packlands was surreal. the smells, the sounds. They were home and they were prison. I avoided the lodge, heading for the cluster of small huts where the Omegas and lower Betas lived. Alara's was at the end, closest to the woods. A sliver of light bled under her door. I tapped a specific rhythm, our old signal when we were children sharing secrets. A pause, then the door cracked open. Alara's face, pale and stunned, appeared. "By the moon," she breathed, yanking me inside and shutting the door. "Kaylin, you fool, what are you doing here?" Her embrace was fierce, trembling. "There's no time," I whispered urgently. "Cora, she's not just casting us out, she's purging the pack. Anyone who shows sympathy, anyone who doubts her. My friend, she's in danger. I can't let her pay for my escape." Alara's face hardened. "I know. There've been incidents. Old Beta Elias, who'd always saved scraps for the Omega pups, was accused of stealing from the stores. He was publicly flogged. The message was clear." My blood ran cold. It had already begun. "You have to get out. Others who think like you. Find them. Be ready." I pressed a handful of the braided cords into her hand. "Leave this where they can see it. A sign to trust each other. When the time comes, run for the lightning-struck oak." "The Gray Dawn?" she whispered, hope kindling in her eyes. I nodded. "They are everything the Silver Fang claims to be, but you must be careful. They're watching for you. For me." We shared a last desperate hug. As I turned to leave, a sound froze us both, the crunch of a boot on gravel outside, followed by a low, familiar voice. "Check the Omega quarters again. I want a patrol on each hut. Tonight feels restless." Jax. Alara's eyes widened in panic. She shoved me toward her small back window, which opened into a dense thicket. "Go! Now!" I scrambled out, just as a heavy knock landed on her door. I heard her open it, her voice convincingly groggy with sleep. "Jax, what's going on?" "Seen anything unusual? Heard anything?" "Only your knocking," she said, a thread of her old spirit in the words. I didn't wait. I moved like liquid fear, retracing my path. But the Packlands were now alive with subtle movement, patrols Cora had ordered. I was a mouse in a field of hawks. Just as I reached the boundary stone, a figure stepped from behind a tree, blocking my path. Not Jax, Cora. She stood, arms crossed, a cruel smile on her lips. She wasn't in patrol gear. She was waiting. "The ghost returns to haunt us again," she purred. "I knew your sentimental heart would be your undoing. Did you have a nice visit with your friend?" My heart stopped. It had been a trap, and I had walked right into it, leading her straight to Alara's door. "Let her be," I said, forcing my voice not to shake. "This is between you and me." "Oh, it's so much bigger than you now, Kaylin. You're the key, the rogue-loving traitor, the proof we need to justify the alliance, the purge, everything. Valerius's weakness in letting you fester among us ends tonight. Your capture will be the final nail in his coffin, and the beginning of my reign." She didn't signal. She didn't need to. From the shadows around us, 5 betas emerged, bows drawn, arrows aimed at my heart. The trap was sprung. I was caught, and the Gray Dawn, waiting just beyond the trees, was moments away from walking into a war. The world narrowed to the points of 5 arrowheads gleaming in the moonlight. Cora's smile was a victorious slash. "Take her," she commanded. "Alive. I want her to stand before the pack at dawn. I want them all to see the poison we're cutting out." Hands, rough and impersonal, seized my arms. I didn't struggle. A futile fight would just give them an excuse to hurt me, and I needed my strength. My mind, however, raced faster than a hare. Lyra was waiting. She would see I was captured. Would she follow the plan and retreat, or would she, in a moment of fierce loyalty, do something reckless? As they bound my wrists, I caught a flicker of movement in the high branches of a pine just beyond the boundary stone, a shadow against the stars. Lyra. She was watching, a silent, deadly witness. I sent a desperate, silent plea into the night. "Don't! Go!
Warn them." Cora led the procession back toward the lodge, her triumph a tangible force. I was paraded through the quiet grounds, past huts where faces peeked through cracks in shutters, eyes wide with fear. This was her demonstration of power. I was thrown into the same infirmary storage room I'd scrubbed for weeks, now my cell. The door locked with a heavy, final sound. I slumped against the wall, the cold stones seeping through my clothes. I had failed. I had walked into the trap, confirmed Ilara's connection to me, and now the Grey Dawn's location might be compromised if Lyra was followed.
Hours bled by, measured by the slow crawl of moonlight across the floor. Then, a faint scraping at the small, high window. A face appeared, blotting out the stars. Ilara. "Kaylin," she hissed. "Ilara, you shouldn't be here. It's too dangerous." "They're watching my hut, not the root cellar passage," she whispered, shoving something through the bars. A thin file, hidden in a loaf of hard bread. "The lock is old. You can file through the hinge pin. There's a storm drain at the back of this room, behind the sacks. It leads to the stream." Hope, wild and fragile, flared. "Come with me, now!" She shook her head, her face grim. "I can't. If we both vanish, the hunt will be relentless. They'll tear the woods apart. You go. Get to your Grey Dawn. Warn them. I'll stay. I'll rally the others who have the cord. We'll be ready when the time comes." "Cora will punish you for this." "Let her try," Ilara said, a fierce light in her eyes. "I am not the frightened girl I was. You showed me that. Now go. Be the ghost that haunts her for real." She disappeared. I didn't waste a second. The file bit into the soft iron of the hinge. It was agonizingly slow work, every scrape sounding like a thunderclap in the silent room. My wrists burned, but I filed on, driven by Ilara's sacrifice and the image of Ronan's camp unprepared for an assault. Just as the pin gave way with a soft ping, I heard voices approaching the door. Cora and Jax. "Bring her out now. I want her broken and pleading before the assembly." I scrambled, shoving the rotten grain sacks aside. There was indeed an old iron grate over a drain. I pulled at it, my muscles screaming. It groaned, rust flaking away, and gave an inch. The key rattled in the lock. I pulled with a final, desperate heave. The grate came free. I dropped into the cold, fetid darkness just as the door swung open. "What the—" Jax's shout was muffled by stone. I didn't look back. I crawled through the narrow, water-filled tunnel, gasping for air, pushing toward the distant sound of the stream. Behind me, I heard Cora's roar of fury, followed by the baying of alarm horns. I erupted from the drain outlet into the icy stream, gasping. I was outside the lodge walls, but deep within pack territory. The horns meant every patrol, every hunter was now alerted. The woods would be crawling with them. I had to get to the boundary. I had to find Lyra. I moved not with stealth, but with desperate speed, using every rock, every dip in the land for cover. Shouts and howls echoed through the trees, converging. I saw the boundary stone ahead, and I saw Lyra. She wasn't hiding. She stood in the open, a dozen Grey Dawn warriors materializing from the shadows behind her. Ronan was at the front, his face a mask of fury and fear. They had come for me. "Kaylin, run!" Lyra shouted. I sprinted the last distance. Arrows began to fly from the trees behind me, thudding into the earth at my heels. Ronan moved, a blur of motion, intercepting me, pulling me behind the line of his warriors. "You're hurt?" he demanded, his eyes scanning me. "No, but they're coming, all of them. Cora's in control." He gave a sharp signal. The Grey Dawn did not retreat. They formed a protective semicircle, shields and weapons ready. From the Silver Fang tree line, Cora emerged, flanked by perhaps 30 armed betas. Valerius was nowhere to be seen. "So," Cora called, her voice dripping with malice, "the rogue pack reveals itself, and you've come to die for this traitor?" Ronan stepped forward, his voice like rolling granite. "We've come to take what is ours. You hold no claim to her. You hold no claim to honor." "Honor?" Cora laughed. "I hold the future, and you, Grey Dawn, are a relic of the past, a stain to be scrubbed clean. This territory will be unified under one banner, mine." The standoff was taut, a bowstring drawn to breaking. One spark would ignite a bloody battle we couldn't possibly win against their numbers, especially if the Stone-Tooth Alliance was real. Then, from the direction of the Silverfang Lodge, a new sound cut through the tension. Not a war horn, but a rising clamor of voices, shouts, the clash of metal, but not directed at us. Cora's head whipped around, confusion on her face. A Silverfang runner, bleeding from a cut on his brow, stumbled into the clearing. "Cora, it's the Omegas, the lower betas. They've risen up. They've seized the armory. They're holding the Alpha's hall." Ilara, the cords, the network. She hadn't just waited, she had struck. The sympathizers, the quiet ones, the overlooked, they had found their courage. With Cora's most loyal enforcers drawn to the border for my capture, they had struck at the heart of her power. Cora's face contorted with rage. Her perfect trap, her moment of triumph was crumbling from within. She was caught between two enemies. Ronan saw the opportunity instantly. "Your house is divided, Cora. Your strength is an illusion. Stand down or be crushed between the anvil and the hammer." For a moment, madness glinted in Cora's eyes. She looked at me, at Ronan, at her chaotic packlands. The calculus of power shifted. With a snarl of pure hatred, she barked an order. "Fall back. Secure the lodge." The Silverfang betas melted back into the trees, their focus violently redirected inward. The clearing fell silent, save for our ragged breathing. The Grey Dawn remained poised, wary of a trick. Ronan turned to me. In his mercury eyes, I saw no reproach for my reckless mission, only a profound relief and a dawning realization. My return to the Silverfang hadn't just been an act of sentiment, it had been the spark that ignited the rebellion within. The ghost had become a catalyst. "It seems," in Ronan's voice, thick with emotion, "you brought more than just yourself back from the dead, Kaylin." We were safe, for now, but the war for the soul of the territory had just begun, and we were no longer hidden spectators. We were players on the board, and the most powerful piece, the one Cora never saw coming, was the one she threw away, the heart of an Omega. We did not retreat to the hidden valley. The situation was too volatile. Instead, we established a temporary, defensible camp a few miles from the Silverfang border, close enough to monitor, far enough to react. The air buzzed with frantic energy. Scouts reported continuous sounds of conflict from within the packlands, clashes, shouts, the occasional flare of fire. Ilara's rebellion was real. The sympathizers, the quiet ones, the overlooked, they had found their courage. With Cora's most loyal enforcers drawn to the border for my capture, they had struck at the heart of her power. 2 days after my escape, a small, bag-dragged group emerged from the Silverfang tree line under a flag of truce. At its front was Ilara, her clothes torn, but her head held high. Beside her, to my surprise, was Alpha Valerius. He looked older, diminished, a bandage on his arm, but his eyes held a sharp, clear light I'd never seen before, the light of a man who has been shaken awake. Ronan, Silas, Lyra, and I met them in the neutral ground between the trees. "Kaylin," breathed Ilara, rushing forward to clasp my hands. "You made it." You did this," I said, awestruck.
We did, she corrected, glancing at the weary but determined group behind her, a mix of Omegas, older Betas, and even a few young warriors. Korra's cruelty was the flame, but your escape was the spark. We took the lower halls. We freed Alpha Valerius from his confinement. Valerius stepped forward, his gaze sweeping over Ronan and our warriors. His expression was complex: shame, respect, and wariness. I owe you, and your pack, an apology that words cannot hold, he said, his voice rough. I was blind. I let tradition become a cage, and ambition become a cancer within my own house. Korra and her faction hold the main lodge and the western quarter. They have maybe 40 fighters, the most aggressive and loyal to her cause. Ronan listened, his arms crossed. And your standing?
Those with me are fewer, perhaps 30, but we have the support of most non-combatants. The heart of the pack is with us, but hearts do not win sieges. What do you propose? Ronan's voice was neutral. In alliance, Valerius said, the word clearly costing him pride. Not of conquest, but of liberation. Help me reclaim my pack from this poison. In return, I offer formal recognition of the Grey Dawn, a treaty of non-aggression, shared rights to the northern hunting grounds. It was a staggering offer. Legitimacy, safety, a home that didn't have to be hidden. Lyra snorted. And why should we trust you? You threw Kaelin away like rubbish. Valerius flinched, his eyes finding mine. There is no excuse. Only the hope to make amends. My pack is sick. I need your help to heal it, and I believe your way may hold the cure. All eyes turned to Ronan. The fate of the Grey Dawn rested on his next words. He was silent for a long time, looking from Valerius's battered honor to Ilara's hopeful defiance, and finally to me. We will help, he said finally. Not for a treaty, not for hunting grounds. We will help because the enemy of cruelty is our ally, and because every wolf, Alpha or Omega, deserves to live without fear in their own home. He locked eyes with Valerius. But things will change. The old ways, the ways that birthed Korra, must end. Valerius nodded, a deep, weary acceptance in the gesture. Then let us end them together. The next week was a whirlwind of strategy and tension. The Grey Dawn and Valerius's loyalists merged operations in a hidden camp. I worked tirelessly in the healing tent, tending to wounds from both groups. The initial suspicion between former enemies slowly thawed as they fought side by side in skirmishes, shared rations, and shared a common goal. I saw Ronan and Valerius in deep conversation often, two alphas from different worlds, finding a grudging respect. Ronan spoke of governance by council, of valuing all skills. Valerius, once so rigid, listened. One evening, Ronan found me preparing poultices. Valerius asks after you, he said quietly. He wants to speak with you, alone. A knot of old anxiety tightened in my stomach, but the Kaelin who had crawled through a drain was not the same as the one who now stood in a camp of allies. Where? By the council fire. I found Valerius sitting alone on a log, staring into the flames. He looked up as I approached, gesturing for me to sit. Kaelin, he began, his voice heavy. I have uttered many formal apologies to your Alpha, but I owe one directly to you. I failed you. I failed your mother before you. I saw the strength of the pack as a monolithic thing, a wall. I did not see that a wall is made of individual stones, and that discarding some weakens the entire structure. I was wrong. His humility was disarming. You weren't alone in that belief, I said softly. That does not absolve me. As Alpha, the blindness was mine. He looked at me, truly looked at me, as if seeing me for the first time. Ronan tells me of your skill with herbs, of your courage. He speaks of you with a respect I never afforded any Omega. He is a better Alpha than I was. He had to survive what he did. Valerius nodded. This alliance, it is more than military. It is a lesson, one I am trying to learn. He paused. If we succeed, would you consider returning, not as you were, as our head healer, as a voice on the council, to help us build this new way? The offer was breathtaking. To return not as a ghost, but as a founder, to heal the very place that hurt me. I thought of Ilara, of the others still trapped in Chorus Quarter. I will think on it, I said honestly, but first we must succeed. A small, grim smile touched his lips. Yes, first we must succeed. As I walked back to the healing tent, I felt the final chains of my old life fall away. I was not defined by the Silverfang's rejection, nor solely by the Grey Dawn's acceptance. I was Kaelin, healer, survivor, a bridge between two worlds, and tomorrow we would fight to make sure that bridge could be crossed. The plan for retaking the Silverfang Lodge was not a simple assault. Korra's forces were dug in, holding the stone-built main hall and its storehouses. A direct attack would be a bloodbath. The strategy came from an unexpected source: me. Studying the lodge's layout from memory and scouts' reports, I remembered the old drainage systems, the ventilation shafts for the root cellars. The infrastructure meant to serve the stronghold could also be its weakness. We don't storm the gates, I explained to the War Council. Ronan, Valerius, Silas, Lyra, and a few of Valerius's captains. We undermine her spirit and her senses. The plan had two parts. First, Lyra's best scouts would infiltrate via the drains and shafts under cover of darkness. Their mission was not to fight, but to sabotage, to taint the fresh water cisterns with a harmless but foul-tasting herb, bitterroot, to spoil the bulk grain stores with dampness and mold spores, to spread rumors in whispers through the walls, to make the stronghold feel cursed and claustrophobic. The second part was psychological. We would use the shadow bomb. It has a potent, soothing scent when burned. On the night of the final push, the wind will be from the east. We create smudge fires upwind of the lodge. The smoke will carry the scent over the walls. It will calm frayed nerves, ease the aggression of Korra's fighters, and stir memories of peace and safety in those forced to follow her. Valerius looked skeptical. You would fight with calmness? We fight with the truth, Ronan said, understanding dawning in his eyes. Korra's power is built on fear and anger. Strip that away, and what is left? We offer not just defeat, but an alternative, a chance to lay down arms without shame. It was a gamble, a battle of perception as much as strength. The sabotage worked brilliantly. Within 2 days, reports from our spies within Korra's ranks spoke of growing unease. The water tasted of rot. The bread was sour. Strange whispers echoed at night. The fortress was becoming a prison. On the third night, with an east wind sighing through the pines, we moved into position. The combined force of Grey Dawn and Valerius's loyalists surrounded the lodge, hidden in the tree line. Upwind, Marin and I lit small, contained fires of aromatic woods and crumbled shiobomb. The silver-veined smoke curled into the sky, caught the wind, and drifted like a gentle fog over the lodge walls. Silence fell over our army. We waited. For an hour, nothing. Then we heard it, not the clash of steel, but the rising murmur of voices from within the compound. Confused, placid voices. Then a shout of rage, Korra's unmistakable, trying to rally her fighters, to stoke their anger. But her words sounded shrill, desperate against the blanket of tranquility seeping into the stone. A postern gate, the one near the old kitchens, creaked open. A single beta warrior walked out, his weapon lowered. Then another. Then another.
They walked towards our lines, not in surrender, but in a dazed exodus, breathing in the clean, calming night air. Cora's force was unraveling from within. Finally, the main gates groaned open. Cora stood there, flanked by Jax and a handful of her most fanatical lieutenants. They faced our assembled army, their defiance brittle and small against the tide that had turned. Valerius stepped forward, Ronan at his side, a powerful symbol of the new alliance. "It is over, Cora. Your pack has chosen. Lay down your arms." Cora's eyes, wild and hateful, scanned the faces of her former followers, now standing with us. They landed on me, and the venom there was almost physical. "You," she spat. "This is your doing, you and your weakling herbs and your coward's tricks." I stepped forward, past Ronan, past Valerius. I faced her, no longer a ghost, but a woman standing in her own light. "No, Cora, this is the doing of every wolf you ever called weak, every kindness you ever mocked, every heart you tried to harden. You built your strength on sand, and the tide has come in." For a moment, she looked like she might charge, a final suicidal act of spite. But the fight had left her followers. Jax lowered his head, dropping his sword to the ground with a clatter. One by one, the others followed.
Cora stood alone, the architect of her own ruin. The silence was absolute. Valerius motioned to his guards. "Take them. They will face the pack's justice." As Cora was led away, her final scream was not of defiance, but of utter, bewildered loss. "I only wanted to make us strong." The siege of the Silverfang Lodge ended not with a battle, but with a breath. The scent of healing had proven mightier than the stench of fear. We walked through the gates not as conquerors, but as liberators. The pack members who had been trapped rushed out, embracing Valerius, looking with curiosity and hope at the Grey Dawn warriors among us. Alara found me, pulling me into a tearful hug. "You did it," she whispered. "You really did it." I looked over her shoulder at Ronan. He was watching me, his mercury eyes full of a pride so deep it felt like the sun after a long winter. He gave me a slow, solemn nod. The war was over. The healing could truly begin. The weeks that followed were a frenzy of peaceful activity. The Silverfang Lodge, once a symbol of cold hierarchy, became a workshop for reconciliation. Cora and her inner circle were tried by a council of elders from both packs. Their sentence was permanent exile, stripped of their pack bonds, cast into the wild woods to survive as true rogues, a fate they had once eagerly prescribed for others. The real work was rebuilding. Valerius, true to his word, began implementing changes. A new council was formed. Ronan and Silas sat on it, representing the Grey Dawn. Alara sat on it, representing the Omegas and lower ranks. I was offered a seat for my role as head healer, but I deferred to Marin, whose wisdom was deeper. I chose instead to advise, to work with my hands in the new expanded gardens and the bustling healing halls. The Grey Dawn did not simply dissolve into the Silverfang. That was vital to Ronan. They remained a distinct community, their camp in the Hidden Valley officially recognized as their territory. But the border between our lands became a symbol of alliance, not division. Wolves came and went, sharing knowledge, skills, and stories. Young Silverfang betas trained with Lyra for stealth and precision. Grey Dawn warriors learned large-scale hunting techniques from Valerius's hunters. One afternoon, I was in the new Central Garden, a joint project, showing a group of pups from both packs how to identify edible plants versus medicinal ones. Ronan found me there, my hands covered in soil, laughing at a pup who'd accidentally smeared mud on his own nose. "A far cry from the edge of the clearing," he said softly, coming to stand beside me. I looked up at him, the sun glinting in his dark hair. A world away. He knelt, helping a little Silverfang girl untangle a seedling. "Valerius asked me again today. He wants to step down in a year's time. He believes the packs should be formally united under a single alpha. He suggested me. The shock must have shown on my face. I refused, Ronan said, standing and brushing the soil from his hands. One alpha, one lodge. It's the old model. It's what led to the Highland Crest's fall, to the Silverfang's sickness. Strength should not be concentrated in one place, in one person. Then what did you propose? An alliance council, a binding treaty between two equal packs, the Silverfang and the Grey Dawn. We share this territory, protect it together, govern our internal affairs separately, but come together for mutual defense and major decisions. Two pillars holding up the same sky. It was brilliant. It preserved the Grey Dawn's hard-won identity and the Silverfang's reformation. It was a blueprint for a new kind of power, shared, balanced, resilient. He agreed? I asked. After a long talk, he did. He sees the wisdom. He wants his legacy to be this bridge, not just a stronger wall. Ronan's gaze grew more intent. There's more. The council needs a permanent liaison, someone who understands both packs intimately, someone trusted by both, someone whose strength is in building connections, not wielding authority. My heart began to beat a curious rhythm. Who did you have in mind? You, Kaelin. His voice was firm, sure. The unseen Omega who saw what everyone else missed. The healer who mended not just wounds, but a broken pack. The ghost who became our guiding spirit. Will you do it? Will you be our bridge? Tears, hot and sudden, pricked my eyes. It was the final, complete validation. My gentleness, my heart, my quiet observations, flaws in the old world, were the very strengths needed to build the new one. Yes, I whispered. Then stronger, yes. The official signing of the Dawn Accord was held in the very clearing where I had first met Ronan, under the lightning-struck oak. Both packs gathered, not in separate ranks, but mingled together. Valerius and Ronan stood before the ancient tree, speaking vows of peace and mutual aid before their combined people. Then Ronan turned to the assembly. A pact of paper is one thing. A pact of heart is another. Our liaison, who will ensure these words live in our actions, is Kaelin. He beckoned me forward. I walked to stand between the two alphas, facing the sea of faces, Grey Dawn faces I loved, Silverfang faces I was learning to trust. I saw Alara, beaming, Marin nodding with approval, Lyra giving me a sharp, proud salute. I had no grand speech. I simply placed my hand on the scarred bark of the oak, feeling the life that surged beneath its damaged surface. This tree was struck by lightning. It was broken, scarred. Many would have called it dead, cut it down for fuel. But it healed. It grew around its wound. It stands stronger now because of what it survived. I looked at them all. We are like this tree. We have been struck, broken, scarred, but we choose to heal. We choose to grow, not as one trunk, but as a forest, different but rooted together, protecting each other from the storms. A profound silence followed. Then a sound began, not a cheer, but a low, harmonious hum of approval from both packs, a sound of unity that vibrated in the very air. As the celebration began, Ronan stayed by my side. "You have a way with words, liaison," he said, a smile touching his eyes. "I learned from a wise man that strength is in the weave, not the single thread." He looked at me, and in his mercury gaze I saw a future unfolding, not without challenge, but filled with a hope so bright it outshone the memory of every dark night. The ghost was gone. In her place stood a healer, a bridge, a woman finally home in her own skin, under a new dawn that she had helped to summon. 5 years later, the territory was unrecognizable from the place of fear and silence I had fled. The two-pack alliance, now simply called the Forest Covenant, had become a model that neighboring packs came to study. The Liaison Lodge, a beautiful, round building set between the two main settlements, was my home and workplace. From there, I mediated disputes, coordinated shared hunts and harvests, and oversaw the exchange of knowledge. Marin and I ran a thriving academy of healing, attended by pups and warriors from both packs. Alara had become the Silverfang's head of community. Her gentle strength organized festivals, childcare, and support for the elderly. She had found love with a quiet, steadfast Grey Dawn Beta, and their twin pups were the delight of both packs. One crisp autumn morning, I walked through the thriving joint marketplace that sprawled between the settlements. A Grey Dawn leatherworker bargained amiably with a Silverfang hunter over a quiver. Pups from both backgrounds played a chaotic game of tag, their laughter ringing in the air. The scent of baked bread from a communal oven mixed with the tang of forged metal from the shared smithy. I was heading to the herb wall, a living tapestry of medicinal plants that covered the south side of the Liaison Lodge, when I saw him. Ronan stood at the edge of the training grounds, watching a mixed group of adolescents, future scouts, undergo Lyra's rigorous instruction. His posture was relaxed, the constant vigilance of the early years softened into a watchful peace. He sensed my approach and turned, that familiar, warm smile gracing his features. The years had etched a few more lines at the corners of his eyes, lines of laughter and sun, not just worry. "Liaison," he greeted, his voice a low rumble. "Escaping your desk?" I said the herb wall needs pruning, holding up my basket, and the desk will be there when I return. Some things require a personal touch. We fell into step, walking toward the wall. It was our ritual, these quiet walks. No longer alpha and refugee, but partners in the steady work of peace. "The delegation from the Stone Tooth Pack arrives tomorrow," he mentioned. "They're not coming to discuss alliances of war anymore. They want to talk trade. They've heard of our herb yields, our crafted tools." I smiled. "So we go from being the feared rogues to the sought-after neighbors? A better reputation, I think. All because a rejected Omega taught us that a pack's true strength is measured in its compassion, not its cruelty," he said, his tone serious now. He stopped, turning to face me fully. The morning sun lit the silver in his hair and the profound depth in his mercury eyes. "Kaylin, these years, building this with you, it has been the meaning of my life, the redemption I never dared hope for." My breath caught. The unspoken thing that had grown between us over the years, tempered in shared struggle and nurtured in shared triumph, hovered in the air, fragile and magnificent. "Ronan," I began. He took my hand, his calloused fingers gentle around mine. "I am not a man of pretty words. I am a man of action, of loyalty, of silent watch. I have watched you heal a broken world with the same hands they said were useless. I have watched you turn fear into hope, and I have watched my own scarred heart come alive in the light you carry." He took a deep breath. "My wolf recognized yours that very first night in the shadows, not as prey, but as its other half, its missing piece. Will you be my mate? Not as an alpha claims an omega, but as Ronan asks Kaylin, as one soul asks another to walk the rest of this path, side by side, as equals." Tears of pure, unadulterated joy spilled down my cheeks. This was not a demand, not a transaction of power. It was an offering, a request, the most beautiful words I had ever heard. I looked at our joined hands, at the herb wall bursting with life we had planted together, at the thriving, peaceful territory we had built from ashes. I looked into the eyes of the silver wolf who had seen a ghost and given her a world. "Yes," I said, my voice thick with emotion, but clear as a bell. 1,000 times yes, as equals, as partners, always. He didn't kiss me. That was not our way. Instead, he brought my hand to his heart, holding it there so I could feel its strong, steady beat against my palm. A promise. A home. Then he rested his forehead against mine, a gesture of profound intimacy and unity, a silent vow under the open sky. That evening, we announced our bonding to the Forest Covenant. The celebration that erupted was not for an alpha's claiming, but for a union that symbolized everything we had built. The feast was lavish, the music joyous, and the laughter was a symphony of two packs truly become one people. As dusk fell, Ronan and I slipped away, drawn to the clearing with the lightning-struck oak. It was bathed in the silver light of a full moon, just as it had been years ago. We stood together, looking at the tree, then at each other. "From this place of fear," I whispered, "came everything. From this place of mercy came everything." He shifted then, his human form dissolving into the magnificent silver-touched wolf with mercury eyes. I followed suit, my own shift feeling more right than ever before. My wolf form, once a source of shame for its omega gentleness, now felt strong, sure, and loved. We ran together through the moon-drenched forest, two wolves, side by side, not chasing, not fleeing, simply running for the joy of it, for the freedom, for the future that stretched before us like an unbroken path. We howled together, a single harmonious call that echoed through the trees. It was a song of healing, a song of home, a song of a love that had seen the shadows and had chosen forever to walk in the dawn.